I found the most important finding yet when I began to write what was going on. There was a strategy to their projections into my senses. They are predictable. They have limits. They can be categorized. My mind could learn to anticipate what the intrusion into my senses equate to. It was not a random occurrence. Immediately I felt empowered. These voices had weaknesses. They must conform to a specific design. Taking notes, I found what they did fell under certain categories. They often re-emphasized their past dealings with me. So whenever they did this, I charted that under a projection into my senses of their past. Or more simply a past projection. They also found clever ways of describing how they would be responding to me in the future. Or how I would expect to find them in the future. In other words, a future projection. Or they would assert their ownership of the moment I was having. A present projection. So there are past, present and future projections. Which means they actually fight to stay in my mind. Meaning there is a measure of how successful they are at being a cognitive experience. A sign that they must do certain so-called actions in order to be a successful projection into my senses. They have to fight to remain real. I also made other categories. How or what they did to me. These were 1. A physical projection. Something I felt that was non-ordinary. Like them swimming through me. Or my ears ringing as if a gun had fired. Or any number of daily sensation they caused. My most bothersome sensation was pain. They could make me have such terrible pain anywhere in my body. I could even feel pain outside my body. I could feel bones trying to tear their way out of my arms. They can also move my body independent of my will. They can move my arms against my will. They can make my legs kick. Every day they jerk my head from side to side. I try to hold my head in place but they can turn that sensation into my head jerking forward or backward. I hold my head with my hands and my body jerks away. They can also simulate things like coughing. Their favorite thing is to wait for me to be just at the moment to sleep and then wake up to a need to cough. I would do this 3 or 4 times until I finally managed to sleep. Sometimes I could never fall asleep. Another trick of theirs was whenever I was writing a word with 2 E's I would end up writing a third A. They would celebrate all their taunts with terrible laughter. 2. Auditory projection. This was the mental sounds in my mind, as well as sounds I heard out in the world that were not there. Their voices. 3. Taste and smell projection. The voices caused me to have any taste or smell they fancied. 4. Thought projection. Not only were their voices stronger than my own internal dialogue, but they could assemble any concept in my mind. Full concepts were often added to my normal thinking. Concepts that were antagonistic, that sought to undo my normal thinking, or any strange and unreasonable concept that never stopped appearing in my mind. 5. Emotion projection. If I heard a funny joke and wanted to laugh, they would quickly invade my body with sadness, or fear, or raging. Or if I wanted to be sad about something they would make me feel happy or animated beyond the feeling. 6. A reaction projection. This was by far the most important finding. I learned that they could simulate any reaction in my body. How far-reaching this would turn out to be I learned over time. When I first began to write, they made it as hard as possible, sensing I was going to weaken their ability to be a real presence in my mind. They screamed and screamed as I wrote, often causing me to forget a clue I had just come to. By the end of the first day they told me, "Damn it. We adjusted," signaling that they realize I made ground in my writing. And they did. They had to accommodate my new attitude of examination. They had to be careful, knowing that what I would find would only hurt their purposes at being a reality since it was something that had to be defended. I could now witness them backpedaling, so to speak. To this end they began to fill my day with useless details. Details I had already jotted down. They would hold back a lot of what they used to do routinely in order to recharge its potency, in order to bring it back at a later time. The feeling of their so-called reality was so strong and intrusive that I began a strategy of my own in order to combat it. Whenever they showed me a visual distortion, I would say to myself, that is a visual projection. Whenever they would make me hear something, I would say, that is merely an auditory projection. Likewise, whenever I felt something, heard something, seen something, experienced something, I would say to myself that was only a certain type of projection into my senses. Nothing more. Yet I found I repeated behavior that seemed odd. I began to say my response almost to them, rather than to myself. Then I began to say it to accuse them of even trying it in the first place. How could you make me see that, and think I wouldn't know that it's just a visual projection? Why are you talking to me would be their response. 3 times I wondered why. Why couldn't I ever stop talking to them? They begged me 3 times to stop. The longest I went was 45 seconds before I began to say things in response to their intrusion. They would find endless things to call me on. Reasons why I was failing at using my strategy, to reduce them to mere false projections into my senses. One day I had a very far-reaching conclusion. One day demonstrating for me. What if I don't respond to them? What if they simulate my response to them, just as they can make my arms move independently of my will? Why couldn't they make me have responses that weren't my own, but feel exactly like one I normally might have? Just to demonstrate it for me, they made my mind experience the words. Wait. That would be really stupid. That could never happen. Not to me. It felt like me saying those things in my head. But it would never be words I would choose to say. Or an arrangement. Sure enough, they have never stopped showing me they can simulate any thought I have. Any response to them can be simulated by them. And I would think I really wanted to keep talking to them when it's the last thing I would want. Imagine being on the phone with someone forever. Always wanting to hang up but never can. I also learned they have 2 purposes for their illusions or projections. The first, most important reason is to trick or deceive me into thinking or behaving a certain way. The next reason for them is used, after I have figured out their maneuver. They then use things as a mere taunt. They will defend ruthlessly all they do till they no longer can. But just to steal my thunder for having overcame their strategy, they will then keep doing it as a petty taunt to say that my victories are worth nothing. But finding out that they could simulate anything in me, including my own reactions that only appeared to be my own, presented a problem. I not only have to learn to ignore them, but I also have to learn to ignore my own self. Or what appears to be my own self. They are so damn clever that it took me another 3 or 4 months to finally and completely learn just what to ignore. But I have finally succeeded. Some things I found to look out for. 1. That they can add any sensation to what I think or do. Like when I realize it's only a visual projection, they will add a sensation that it is the very first time I realized such a maneuver. Belittling my ability to overcome it, and also confuse me. If it's the first time I feel confident about overcoming it, then I must suck at it since I always overcome it. All presented by their illusion. They can add a gray lining to any positive thought. Or a silver lining to any sad thought. They can make me feel my concepts are boxed into sensations, or expectations that are no way applicable to them. Now, today, I know there are no vocal cords to make voices. There are no bodies in front of me for me to respect someone wearing clothes in my mind. What I see of them is not real. They themselves told me in the very beginning that they have no form. Anything I would therefore see of them is only an illusion. They don't exist. If I had known from the very beginning that my own words and reactions to them can be simulated and false, I could have saved myself a mountain of concern and energy. Please, if you are suffering this, I would tell you to completely stop talking to them. Tell yourself that even if you find yourself talking to them, consider it an illusion. Or simulated. Never address them. Write down what happens to you and find what category it belongs in. Never fall for the trap of what you're doing somehow is a response to them, or deserves a response to them. What I really want to do is ask anyone who is going through the same thing, if they have found any similarities to what they are going through. Do your voices fight to stay in your notice as well? The human mind of everyone might not be that different, and therefore, if these conclusions are similar, then I would like to compare notes. Please respond with comments to this video.